We now have a bit of a peek into the world of virtual reality thanks to some research conducted by 01 Consulting, which was helpfully then reported on by VentureBeat, and of course there will be a link to their discussion in the description below this video. And according to the research carried out by 01 Consulting, Sony is accounting for about 30% of the virtual reality space, and they are tearing well ahead of Oculus, who are of course owned by Facebook, and HTC. Now, Oculus has about 11% and HTC has 6%. Google and Samsung have about 8 and 7% respectively, and Valve, who of course are partnered with HTC for the Vive, are at the bottom of the rung at 2%. You might be asking, well, how are they getting these figures? Well, they say that their report is based on, quote, evaluated and estimated product sales for over 30 companies and 40 products globally through revenues and units sold used for each of the vendors. And unsurprisingly, the leading market position for Sony is attributed to the comparatively low price and entry point of the PlayStation VR, as well as of course the multi-million install base of PS4s that of course are already the platform for virtual reality. Now, this is something that I did raise myself in the last time we discussed Sony's dominance in VR, in that in terms of affordability, while the PSVR is still expensive and it still costs a lot of money, it is by far the cheapest option and the entry level, assuming you're ignoring mobile VR like Daydream and like the Gear, because we're talking about for gaming. You want to sit and you want to play games, console games or PC games, that sort of thing. But so in that space, Sony are easily the lowest priced. And of course, if you have a PS4, you can run the PS4 VR. You don't have to worry about, do I have enough power in my machine? All that sort of thing. Of course, as well, from what I've heard, the setup is the easiest as well. Now, the reason Oculus are ranking lower is, understandably, the rather high entry price. Oculus is, of course, right up there with the Vive if you include the touch controllers. And Facebook and Google rank lower due to their lower user bases. However, the report does note that these companies are still generating hundreds of millions of dollars because of VR. So that's not to say that they're not seeing success in virtual reality, just if we're talking peanuts to peanuts in comparison, the PlayStation VR is dominating according to their research. And of course, Google have the Daydream on the horizon, which is undoubtedly an attempt to increase their share of the market and increase their user base, because their low user base is obviously an issue. Not many people are interested in your device, and that's kind of an issue before you even get started. Yes, the cardboard, the currently available VR thing, is affordable, but it is mobile, and so is Daydream, but it's still going to be a new entry, a new thing to be like, hey, this is also usable on Android devices and is kind of an answer to the Gear and that sort of thing. So that's definitely Google's attempt to kind of even the playing field, as it were. Now, when you combine Sony, Facebook, Google and Samsung, they do represent more than half of the VR space, and the other half is comprised of lesser known and lower profile VR headsets such as Epic Games, Crytek, handful of developers. It seems every other week for a while I was announcing, hey, this company has a VR headset coming out, and they also, of course, are making up the rest of it, and Unity, Epic Games and Crytek account for 1% of the market each. And of course, CCP games are also among them, given the popularity of Eve Valkyrie. This is not really a surprise. It's one of the games of virtual reality, from what I've heard. It's one of the few games where you can pretty safely assume you won't be getting motion sickness, which is always a plus, I find. No unsurprisingly, Microsoft are also one of the lowest at 1% market share, but they really don't have an entry in VR at the moment. But of course, they did make the announcement not too long ago that they're going to be having a series of low-price VR headsets with other hardware manufacturers are working with them, so that might change, as if they get the pricing and the specs right, we could see the scales tip in this brand new market. Now, of course, what's going to be critical to all of the people mentioned in this video is the games coming out for them. Now, according to the report, it is pretty standard to see hardware makers take the market share first, but then it is also standard to then see the game developers growing their market share, since that is of course where the bigger value resides. You know, you can have the best VR headset on the planet, but if you've not got any good games for it, then it's kind of irrelevant. So as more and more games come out for VR, as developers get more and more creative, more and more comfortable with this new medium, come up with new ideas, you know, solve the whole moving forward problem outside of a cockpit, that sort of thing, we're going to be seeing their market share increase. Now of course the hardware guys are always going to have a significant chunk, but I would not be surprised to see Sony being contested by a group or several strong leading developers, just because they are providing the software that is selling the hardware. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.